Yo, what's up YouTube? It's your boy Damontae bringing you a banger. Don't forget to follow on my Twitch, please. This is where we have daily content. Hey, what's up everybody? This is a video that has been requested multiple times inside the YouTube comments and has been requested a few times inside of the live streams as well. So basically this is going to be my skills build. You know, you guys get the point video basically. This will be covering my guns, this will be covering like my throwables, my deployable, my armor type, my skills, and things like that. Other than that, basically, let's just go quickly, briefly discuss the setups here. Now this one, this was the very first setup. It can use an assault rifle or an SMG. This one here is more geared towards like the sniper and the DMR. This one is, you know, as you can see, is geared towards the shotguns. This one can be used with any of the SMGs. This one, once again, is sort of like the assault rifle setup. I can take away the SCAR and throw in the CAR 4 if I wanted. This one more specifically is my solo setup here. The skills and the way that this one's played is more geared towards solo play. And then the last one is another SMG setup, but it's using the Ziv commando because I was trying to make it not so bad. Now that we've kind of quickly went over the setups here, I want to kind of cover a few things before we jump into the builds immediately. First off, I want to talk about armor bags and, you know, the other deployables real quick. So, as an example, if you're playing Overkill, which that's what I'm going to be playing, an armor bag is all you'll need, and the same goes for your teammates. You guys are all going to need armor bags. Medic bag, ammo bag isn't really needed because ammo can be grabbed from the enemies, and ammo is not shared as a group. Ammo is, you know, individual in each person's game. So if a teammate kills a group, you can pick up that same ammo that he grabs. So that's why ammo bags aren't needed in this game. Now let's go ahead and talk about the medic bag. I'm not saying that they're not needed, they're just not like needed to be brought as a deployable. Now let's talk about the medic bag as an example. There's a couple of skills that, you know, using meds are, you know, beneficial. The only time that you're really going to need a medic bag is if you have the skill to give you the extra down. Then, you know, using a medic bag is useful. Other than that, you can trade civs for first aid kits. Most maps have first aid kits naturally spawned on them. There's skills to make you get more first aid kits when trading civs. There's another skill that gives you like more first aid kits if it's a law enforcement. So essentially, you don't really need medic bags is what I'm getting to. The only thing that you can't get from like civs or enemies or anything like that is the armor bag, and the armor bag is basically the meta of your survival. If you don't have armor, you're going to die inside Overkill. So I just wanted to quickly talk about that. From what I hear though, also the sentry gun's pretty good, but you don't want to bring like more than one sentry gun. You just want to have like 3 people armor, 1 guy sentry if you're gonna bring sentry. Okay, so next I kind of want to talk about the armor setups. So this is kind of a thing that's like written below the scenes, but if you wear the lightest armor setup, you will actually have 4 downs. If you wear the heaviest armor setup, you'll only get 2 downs. Now with that being something, you know, in effect in the game basically, the way that I'm seeing it is this: if you're using the heavier armor, you're not getting downed as often, so therefore having only 2 downs really isn't that much of an issue. While on the flip side here, if you're using the lightest version of the armor, you get 4 downs because the game is going to assume that you're probably going to get downed slightly more often, right? Like, I get the idea here. While the other 2 give you 3 downs, I find it very interesting that they went ahead and they went with this way of playing. Now, the one thing I want to mention about all the armor sets here is that it's not like one is the correct way of playing or anything. Like if you're doing solo, your best bet might be the heavy ballistic because it has 4 armor, and if you have a skill that gives you 2 armor for the price of 1, this is the best armor to be using inside solo. But then on the flip side, medium ballistic still allows you to run pretty fast on the flip side of giving you 3 armor stacks. So you'll basically play around with the 2 armors, and then once you get down to the 1 armor, you'll take an armor from the bag and get yourself back to full. Like, that's the way that I play it, at least. I don't really do a lot of playing with the lower tier armors because the game is really focused on armor, so that's the reason why I don't go for the lower tiers. Now lastly, I want to talk about the Overkill Weapons here before we get into the actual skills, builds, and guns. There's only 2, obviously. I had seen yesterday that the sniper here actually shoots through like shields and certain walls, so that's something that you guys might want to pay attention to. A specific gun in this game can shoot through walls, it can shoot through shields. That's something that was only seen in Payday 2. Now, another big advantage this gun has is that it has like a scope that will show you where the enemies are. That's highly beneficial in this game, considering that there's certain times where you'll get shot from an angle that you don't know, and the sniper can easily expose those angles. Now on the flip side with the grenade launcher, I actually really prefer the grenade launcher. As you read, it says 1 grenade can wipe out a whole squad of cops. That's pretty accurate. Now the only disadvantage to the grenade launcher though is that sometimes the grenades like won't kill like full groups. Like it'll only like knock them over and damage them. Like I'm not really sure what the consistency is there. Maybe it's the way the grenade lands, and maybe objects on the ground are covering its explosion. I'm not really sure. But what I do know about the grenade launcher is there is a skill in the skills here inside the grenade. I think it's right here, Overcooked. If you use Overcooked with the grenade launcher, it will instantaneously explode your grenades upon impact instead of allowing them to bounce around. Now that, for the grenade launcher itself, is extremely good, because that's the biggest issue with the grenade launcher, is that you shoot the grenades and they kind of bounce around and don't explode immediately. So with that skill, obviously, you can make this thing really, really strong. Even without it, this thing's still really good. The times I use it's usually to like cover our asses at the end of a mission. Now, since that's done, we'll go ahead and start going over the first build here. Once again, this one could use any of the SMGs, and it can use pretty much any of the assault rifles as well. I want to point out that most of the skills inside of the builds here will almost be the same for pretty much all your loud builds. You're going to be grabbing the same key skills, and then after that, the slight variations of the other skills will be present. And I say very slight because it's pretty slight. So now as for the weapons here, I don't have as much customized, options on all of them because they're not all leveled up, because I've been shuffling through them all. But the examples that I'm going to be giving you is that you pretty much just want a sight for this gun. Everything else is pretty stable. Like, you can grab a grip and a suppressor, but as long as you have a sight, this gun's really good. As for your secondaries, I'm just, leveling up the Bison here. Obviously, I would recommend using one of the revolvers or the Model 11. Now, I'm not going to say don't use these other pistols. These ones are really good and really strong. It's just you got to hit headshots with the lower tier pistols. Not that the other pistols don't, it's just these ones you have to. Now let's go ahead and get into the skills for this build here. As for the SMG kind of assault rifle build, we are using medic to heal our teammates slightly faster. We will never be using medic bags, so the second part of this skill, has no effect. So as for our next skill, we have ammo specialist, which gives us a 20% increase to our ammo. Oops. And then we also have plate up, which as long as we have grit, ammo drops will instantly regen our current armor chunk. Pretty strong, not something that I have trigger all the time though. Next I have is mower, which gives me edge every time I shoot 35 bullets. Considering most guns are like 30 bullets, you're shooting 35, pretty consistently. Next, these are the 2 skills that I would consider be the most needed for certain gun types and almost a staple in pretty much every setup. We have ammo funnel, pairing it together with replenish. You have ammo funnel. As long as I have edge, the ammo pickup is directly added into my weapon's magazine. So essentially what that's saying is if I have, you know, a revolver that shoots 6 bullets, if I kill somebody and pick up the ammo, it instantly puts it into my revolver, which results in, you know, maybe 6 shots again. The next portion to this is that replenish. If I kill something, I instantaneously grab the ammo from the person that I killed, right? So pairing these two skills together, I can instantly get my ammo pickups and then be able to put those ammo pickups instantly into my gun, never having to reload essentially. So next I have sprint reload, which is allowing me to sprint and reload at the same time. This is pretty much another staple in every build. You almost want that in pretty much everything. Next we have tank, and I have mine aced, and the reason I aced it was for the last man standing skill. So this gives me a regeneration speed increase, and it also gives my armor bag 2 chunks, but the aced version, when I break one of my armor chunks, I gain or I refresh grit. Grit is taking 10% less damage. Now this will come into factor here in just a second. Next I have extra plates, which gives me 2 additional armor, so it's 4 extra armor inside my already 2 armor bags, so that should be 6 in total. Next we have armor up, which this is a 100% required skill inside Overkill. If you don't have this skill, you're trolling. So basically, when you're interacting with an armor bag, instead of taking 1 armor for the cost of 1 armor, you're going to be taking 1 armor for the cost of 2. So therefore, if you have 6 armors in your bag, you take 1 armor, you're left with 5, but then you gain 2 for the price of 1. So instead of having 12 armors in your bag, it's like you're having 12 armors in your bag. Oh, wait. Instead of having 6 armors in your bag, it's like you're having 12. I said that a little silly. But basically, your armor bag with this skill is doubled. One of the best things you should be using. Next, we have the last man standing skill, which I just mentioned is the grit, is the reason why we have grit. So if damage that would normally down me, instead I will consume grit and stay on my feet and be immune to damage for 10 seconds. Essentially, it's like having like an anarchist no, damage for 10 seconds. Or like using a kingpin injector for 10 seconds. It's very, very strong. You want to have grit triggered, and the best way to have grit triggered is to break your armor, and it triggers grit. And then if your armor is getting broken, generally you're probably going to take some life damage after that. So last man standing is almost like the best thing to have in this situation, since your health is your last line of defense. Now the second portion of this is that after this effect has, taken into effect, you can no longer get grit unless you use a first aid kit or a medic bag. And as we mentioned earlier, there's usually first aid kits along the maps. You can, trade a civilian for first aid kits, so this really isn't that big of an issue. Next we have sharpshooter, which gives us edge. If I stand still for 1.5 seconds and aim down my sights, I get a damage increase. Now this damage increase was more for this skill here, which is called cutting shot, which gives me armor penetration increased. This is mostly good for like the revolvers, like the AK, like the MP7. Like this isn't good for all the guns, but this is certainly good for like, your shields and stuff. Next, I want to talk about the escapist. Whenever you sprint for 3 seconds, you gain rush. Let me explain how like important rush is in this game real quick. Just like it is in Payday 2, like you don't want to stay too stationary in this game. You don't want to be like sitting in one spot for too long. And when you do run around and you want to move around in this game, like you want to do things quickly. You don't want to be like hanging around in a certain area for too long. So that's where the escapist comes into play. You get a speed movement increase, and with that speed movement increase, like it really gets you out of sticky situations like quickly. So highly recommended, and this is one of the few skills that actually gives you rush. Next I have the enforcer, which is giving me grit if I kill 2 enemies within 4 seconds that are 5 meters from me. I know it's a little confusing, but basically kill two enemies really quickly that are really close to me, and then I gain damage reduction. And then this skill will also play in factor with the last man standing. That's why I'm using the both of them. And as for the final skills here, I have the strategist, which is giving me I can mark an additional target and it lasts for 20% longer. Now, I had to grab that for the second part, which is this, misdirect. As long as I have rush, any cloaker or zapper that tries to disable me, I will instead suffer a heavy stagger, right? So pairing this skill together like in a solo fashion, or if you're the last teammate alive, or if you're all the way across the map doing an objective, like these are the situations where misdirect is going to come into play. You're going to have a cloaker that comes out of nowhere. If you can properly tag him before he gets you, which there's a short little thing you have to think about in that moment. Do you tag him or do you shoot him in the head and try and kill him? You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of hard to sometimes differentiate what you should do in that scenario. But if you get a chance to tag him instead of shoot him, if you have this skill, you'll take just a stagger instead. Now, I'm pretty sure there's another skill up here I just want to mention real quick. This one right here. As long as you have rush, an enemy that will affect you with a stagger, you will instead remove rush and ignore the stagger. The one thing I wonder is that if this trigger misdirect triggers and they try and stagger me, but what if I have balanced triggered? Changing the cloaker into a stagger and then changing that stagger into a complete ignored state. Is that something possible is what I was wondering. Now the only thing that I disagree with this is that this doesn't label heavy stagger. So it may not work in that sense. But very interesting nonetheless. That was the first build. Now here goes to the second one. The next one is more centered towards like the DMR sniper setup. As for the weapons, I'm just, same old, just putting a sniper suppressor and that's pretty much it. As for the secondary, it can be any of the secondaries. I'm just leveling this one. As for the skills here, as I mentioned on the last build, you're pretty much going to have similar skills in all your builds, and then there's going to be like some slight changes to some of them at the end of the skills. So as we have here, we have ammo specialist for the sniper. I just want to be able to continuously have ammo, so that's the reason why I went for this. Next we have plate up. As long as I have grit, I can instantly regen my armor. Next we go for mower. Then I have ammo funnel and replenish. This is really good inside the sniper because if I'm aiming down the sights, which I do have inside this build, and if I'm standing still, I can get edge, and then having edge with a single shot sniper that can one-shot enemies, I can consistently one-shot and never have to reload with these two. Next, grabbing sprint reload, like that's almost a necessity in most of your builds. Same thing with these next few skills, like if you don't have tank, pairing it with extra plates and pairing it with armor up, you're pretty much just trolling. Next, as I just mentioned, I have sharpshooter so that my sniper, consistently gets the ammo funnel. Next, I have cutting shot, which as long as I have edge, my armor penetration is increased. This really isn't that much of a factor unless you're considering the pistols. Next I have ADS and scope speed increased. Since I'm using a sniper and DMRs in this build, definitely something you want to be checking out. Next I have the escapist, pairing it with swift. So while I get the escapist, which gives me rush, if I also already have a speed increase, now I move in even quicker. That right there, in my opinion, could be the difference of life and death. Next I have Enforcer, which could easily be triggered inside this build, just something that you want to pay attention to. You can get damage reduction inside this build quite easily, it's just you need to know how. Next I have Gunslinger. Considering we do have a revolver as a secondary, this is almost like perfect to have inside of a sniper. We can pull out a secondary, immediately get damage increase, but the key point to it is that I have to be hip firing, which is totally fine. Last but not least, we also have misdirect once again for the same ability. So if I get left solo, if I'm playing solo, or if I'm doing something across the map, this should be something as your last line of defense against a cloaker or a taser. Next we have the shotgun setup here. Pretty much you can use any shotgun, you can use any of the pistols. I'm just using the Glock or whatever you want to call it. As for the weapons here, we have ammo specialist, which gives us ammo increase for a shotgun. You know what I mean? That's pretty good to have. Next we have grit, or not grit, we have plate up, which as long as we have grit, our ammo drops will give us our armor chunk. This is pretty much a staple in, every build. Once again, you need ammo funnel, pairing it together with replenish. Now, since we have a double barrel, the, 2 skills here will actually, keep that gun shooting more consistently. So really good inside this build. Next we have sprint reload, another staple inside pretty much every build. Next we grab tank aced, we grab extra plates and armor up. Pretty much if you don't have these skills, you're trolling. But the reason why we went tank aced is so that we can grab last man standing. Inside of the shotgun build, there's a lot of the times where we're going to be close quarters and fighting a lot of stuff, so therefore last man standing comes in handy. Next we have sharpshooter and we have cutting shot. The cutting shot is mostly for my secondary weapon though. Next I'm grabbing the escapist, as I've already explained on the first build, pretty much needed. Next I have enforcer, so shotgun build, enforcer pretty much goes together. Now I want to mention here that I do have hacker. I'm just trying to unlock the rest of the skill tree here. Let me read it real quick. Yeah, this does nothing in loud, so therefore literally you could change this skill into anything. I'm only using this skill to unlock the rest of the skill tree. And then last but not least we have misdirect, pairing it together with strategist. Same reason as last time, I'm using it for that solo style of being alone or being across the map. Next we have an SMG style build. You can use literally any of the SMGs that you can grab. As for the weapons here, it looks like I'm using hacker once again. So we have medic inside this build, which allows me to regen my teammates 20% faster. I want to mention that healing teammates in this game is already pretty quick, so grabbing this skill makes it even better. And then you can ace this skill and grab some other things inside here that make healing a teammate just that much better. Next we have ammo specialist, pairing it together with plate up. Plate up is something that's like if you actually have grit, this skill is really good to get your armor back, but it's not something that's consistent, that'll happen consistently. Next, mower inside an SMG is going to happen all the time, so definitely grab that skill. Something that, is a staple in every build, ammo funnel and replenish, even in the likes of an SMG, and more specifically the likes of an SMG. You can get ammo funnel and replenish to trigger, and you'll basically be shooting non-stop with the SMGs. So I really do enjoy having these 2 skills with the SMG. Next, as we've seen with the last few builds, we have tank aced, extra plates, armor up, and last man standing. The reason why we have tank aced is for last man standing. Now, you always want to have armor up or you're trolling basically. Next is sharpshooter, and then we have cutting shot. Cutting shot is mostly just for my secondary pistol, if I have a revolver or something. Next I have the escapist, which I've explained on the first build. It's pretty much a staple in every, overkill setup. Next we have demolition. I think I have this skill just unlocked the last 2 actually, so this allows my throwables and my, grenade launcher to have more of an area of an effect. That is pretty good to have nonetheless, but I'm only using this for the last 2 skills to get unlocked at the moment. Next I'm using the enforcer, definitely a good skill to have inside of any build so that you can trigger grit. Next I have gunslinger, just like it was on the other build for the sniper rifle. As an SMG, sometimes you want to have a really high damage secondary, so therefore whipping out gunslinger and having hip fire increased damage, certainly something you want to be checking out. And then those 2 points that I have spent on demolition and hacker, you can easily spend on strategist and misdirect. As for the SCAR assault rifle build, you can change through any of the assault rifles for this setup, so don't feel limited to have to use the SCAR here. Now I will mention that the SCAR is one-hitting most of the enemies, so it's really good to be using if you guys have a chance to get the 20 million preset, the 20 million preset, or if you have a chance to just buy the level 77 version. Either way, Either version, really great. I grab ammo specialist for the extra ammo and plate up for the, instant regen. Next, I'm grabbing mower plus ammo funnel and replenish. This gun specifically, since I can one-shot, definitely want to grab these two skills. Sprint reload, definitely a staple in most of your builds. Next, I grab tank aced, extra plates, armor up, and last man standing. Once again, something that you're gonna want in, in a situation where you're playing solo, or if you're playing against, or if you're playing on the opposite side of the map, you guys get the idea. Next, I'm grabbing sharpshooter and extra penetration. Penetration's really good for certain weapons, so definitely want to be grabbing that. Next, this is something that I have is the escapist, pairing it together with balance in this build. This one is if I have rush and an enemy that's trying to stagger me, instead it's going to just ignore the stagger and remove my rush. Next, I have enforcer, which is giving me grit. Grit is certainly useful for the one last man standing skill. I have Master Trader in this build. Now, this is a skill that not everybody understands or even has, but this skill basically, every time I trade a hostage at the beginning of the assault wave, and at the next assault waves following, I can remove 20 seconds from the custody player's timer, and I can reduce it all the way down to 10 seconds. So they're basically, if they go to jail, they're out within seconds, basically. The reason why this skill is in this build is that, like, most of the maps certainly have a lot of civs, right? Like, you got a lot of civs on most of the maps. So having Master Trader is certainly something that you want to grab. Next, I have Gunslinger, pairing it together with, like, a revolver or something. You can easily get massive damage instantaneously. And that's it in this build. Now, this is the solo build. This is one that people are probably wondering what the skills are and wondering what I'm doing inside this build and etc. So basically, once again, you can switch between the heavy and the medium for this build. As for the rest of the skills here, you guys have to keep in mind this is a solo build. So we have the mower skill, we have ammo funnel and replenish. This comes in handy all the time. Next, I have sprint reload. This is for being able to run around the map and consistently have my ammo in my weapon. Next, I have disengage. This I added recently to my build. This is something that you're gonna want to have inside solo fashion. If you get cloaked inside solo, which will happen, you're definitely gonna want to have disengage or something to combat him staggering you, or something to combat him being able to disable you. Furthermore, we have tank aced, extra plates, armor up, and last man standing. These are pretty much a necessity inside Overkill, so you have to have them. Next, I'm grabbing sharpshooter, pairing it together with cutting shot to get extra penetration. Extra penetration for these two weapons, extremely good. Next, I'm grabbing the escapist, pairing it together with swift inside of the solos. Swift being able to move faster, and rush giving me speed increase as well. Having both of these speed increases and being able to run around the maps extremely fast, like, this is certainly a benefit. Having the cops be able to chase you consistently, that's why. Next, we have enforcer, pairing it together with solid. Now, this is something that isn't in most of my other builds, but this is inside my solo build. With solid, if I have grit and edge, any stagger effects I'm immune to. I don't take any sort of stagger. So this counts like if a dozer kicks you, if a shield bashes you, a nader explosion. You guys get the point. That's what this is. And then last but not least, we have strategist, pairing it together with misdirect. Misdirect in a solo fashion. If a cloaker is going to down you, if you have him marked, it won't happen. He'll just stagger you, right? Like, that's the idea here. And then considering that I have solid, if he's just going to stagger me instead of down me, let's assume I have edge and grit alongside rush triggered, I won't even get staggered. He won't do nothing to me. So, very strong setup for solo play. And this is only 18 of the 21 points. The other few points can be scattered amongst a few skills here, but other than that, you don't really need the other few skills. And then last but not least, we have another sort of SMG style build, but this one is, you know, the Ziv Commando is what I'm using currently. As for the skills here, I do grab the ammo specialist for extra ammo. I do grab mower to get that edge skill. Now, as for the Ziv Commando or some of these other SMGs, I do grab suppressive fire inside this build because I'm shooting a lot of bullets, and once again, something like the Ziv Commando, which doesn't have a lot of damage or penetration, staggering the enemies might be just as good of an option as killing them. So therefore, using suppressive fire to stagger the enemies, then grabbing ammo funnel and replenish, so that if I'm just aiming for heads, I can easily continuously shoot with the Ziv. So therefore, if it takes, let's say, 8 shots to kill something, I might get 6 to 8 back when I kill him. So therefore, I'm consistently having like 25, you know, bullets in my mag here. Next, grabbing sprint reload. With a gun like this, you're definitely going to be reloading, you know, all the time, so you definitely want that. Next, I'm grabbing tank aced, extra plates, and armor up with the last man standing skill. As I've explained previously, if you don't have like these 3 skills right here, you're trolling. Acing this skill and grabbing this skill is like the best for solo play. If you're across the map and, you know, away from your team, things like that. Next, we have sharpshooter pairing together with the cutting edge for penetration. Penetration's only useful for like the pistol secondaries, like very specific ones. Next, I have the escapist pairing it together with the battering ram. So from what I hear, battering ram isn't like, or not isn't right, but like some of the doors on the maps aren't like coded correctly. So therefore, like, you can battering ram some doors that you're not supposed to. I'm sure that'll get fixed, obviously, but battering ram certainly does come in handy for like busting through like certain doors quickly. Oops. Next, I have enforcer, which is pairing together with like the last man standing skill. Next, I have manipulator, which allows me to tie hostages faster, but it's more specific towards the last skill here, which is Stockholm Syndrome. If I am downed, you can shout at a tied cowering hostage within range, obviously, and he will try and reach you to revive you. So this is like a weird skill that I've never had to trigger yet, but from the description of the skill, imagine you're like on no rest for the wicked and you're running out to go stop the bollards, right? Sometimes I've seen civs that be out there like at the bollards area. So assume you tie up some of those civs out there at the bollards and the dozer spawns in and just wipes you, dude. And then like rushes towards your teammates or whatever. Then you shout at a civ, you know what I mean? You get the idea. You get bulldozed or you get wiped out there in an area where none of your teammates are, but there is some civs. That's where this skill will come in handy. I could see this skill also being handy in like a solo fashion, but considering the way people play solo, it's usually like no downs, you know, things like that to have extra challenge or whatever. So having Stockholm in solo could obviously be something that you could do, but you also may have people like, well, that's not how solo's played. You know what I mean? So you take it the way that you want to take it. This skill is obviously good. I've never been able to trigger it yet, but it's obviously good from the reading of it. Other than that, that's really it. As for tools, I guess I missed the tools actually. I don't really use, you know, microcam for stealth, so I don't really do that. For motion sensor, I can see motion sensor being extremely good if you know like where the cops will spawn. Like if you know they're jumping over this wall specifically, the motion sensor could easily, you know, give you all the intel you need, right? But as for what I'm doing and the way that I'm playing, the mine is certainly the best tool for me. This thing will stagger shields, it'll stagger cops, stun cops, whatever you want to call it. Like if you're using a gun like I'm using currently, like the Ziv Commando, and if I have these mines, like I can throw them at a doorway, wait for the shield to come up, and then just trigger it. The shield, you know, staggers, I don't have to waste a bunch of ammo. It's extremely easy. There's a lot of different ways to use these mines. That's just the way that I'm using them. Other than that, that's the video. I don't really have much else to say. As I mentioned just a minute ago, instead of like getting level 77 for this gun, you can just spend 20 million and get it much more early on. Other than that, there's really not much else to really talk about for the skills and builds here. So I do really appreciate you guys watching this video. It did last a lot longer than expected. What I will mention though is that my next skill build videos will not last this long. The reason why this one lasted a little bit longer is because inside the skills I was trying to read and kind of give you guys a description and, you know, more understanding basically of the skills, instead of just being like, I've got manipulator, I've got enforcer, I've got Stockholm, I've got sharpshooter, I've got cutting edge, I've got battering ram. Like, you know what I mean? I'm trying to give you guys more of a description here, so it lasted a little bit longer than actually intended, but I do appreciate you guys watching the video. Leave me a comment, a like, things like that. I do appreciate it.